I'm getting the thumb from Tim. It's better than the other thing that he was giving me before. Call the meeting to order. Let the record show that this is a special city council meeting workshop held on Monday, February 1st, 2016. All members of council are present and the press has been duly notified. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. And if you would, please remember Jim Zazula, who passed away on Friday. Thank you. Please be seated.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to allow. There we go. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to allow public comments following the same protocol as regular city council meetings prior to item 1A on the agenda.
I'll second that motion. Council comments? There being none, call the question. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
No, I did not vote yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, just letting you know.
All right, so I got 4 yeses and 1 no.
Yep.
So item number A1 on the agenda is public comments. We have 2 people looking to make public comments. And Kathy Masters on Point Clear. If you'd step to the microphone.
I figured I'd wait till you got to that part. You want me to say what I think right now, or you
Yes,
want me
please.
to get to there?
Right now.
Okay.
Well, sorry. Should have made a comment before we voted. Actually, I should have made 2 comments.
This is on Kathy Masters, 472 Point Clear. And the end of your list, when you talk about growth, I would like for you to think about finding out if there's a way to work with the county. The last 3 residential developments that came into this city were approved by the county before they ever came to us. The only thing we could do at that point is mitigate the damage. I don't know if you've driven through Hawk's Nest, but we went through and it looks like those houses are about 10 feet apart. I'm shocked. We were able to mitigate, let me make sure, Cameron Creek, the old goat farm. Cut that not in half, but pretty close. We cut it way down as far as the density. The one across from the school, I wrote it down someplace.
River Falls.
River Falls was approved by the county. Then they came to us. We were able to cut their density way back. There's one that's going in behind the where the nationwide. It's a condo, and they're extending one of the condos. But what we're running into is we, as a planning commission, we've been trying to work with the county and with Fort Mill for about 6 or 7 years. We've tried some interjurisdictional work. It's like now that they seem more open to it, I'd like to go back there and find out if a piece of property is adjacent to Tega Cay. I think the county owes it to us to let them come to us with their plans as opposed to just approving it, and then we get it rammed down our throat. So that's what I think.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy.
John Sherwood.
John Sherwood, Tepa Place, and I would like to just not talk about golf carts, just the topic of golf carts. When you bring that up today, I think it's great that you guys are doing a workshop. This is the type of thing that it's great for the citizens to actually see how you formulate your decisions, what some of the things that happen behind the scenes when we get here on the council meetings sometimes, and everything's just kind of approved. We know you already looked at it, but we don't know how you got there. So this is kind of neat from that perspective, sidebar. The golf cart thing, it's a state legislation, and I hope that we really kind of communicate that. I think if we can get some energy from the city to maybe create a fully disclaimed piece on the website that says this is what the state law is, this is what we're doing, here's the questions that have come up. so that everybody can just go to one spot and get the answers instead of, 300 people individually coming to each of you individual council persons trying to get an answer. Just one spot where we could do a resource. I think that'd be really helpful and save you guys a lot of time and a lot of headache as well. And maybe even on there have what differentiates a UTV versus a NEV versus a golf cart, and the different things that are coming up around that, because there's different classifications, and people buy stuff and they don't even know if it's legitimately a golf cart or not a golf cart or whatever. So, some of those things would be helpful, even as I prepare to look to potentially become one of these people who drive around in these random little vehicles. So after I get my garage approved and permit. So anyway, but thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Walt, since you're the only other public, do you have a comment?
I refuse to comment right now.
All right, thank you, thank you very much. That's the end of public comments, so we're gonna go into the item number 1, which is the workshop discussion, which is the sidewalk at Shoreline Parkway and Tega Cay Drive. I assume that's you, Charlie.
Yes, sir. Tim, if you can put the image up on the screen for me. There we go. All right, the sidewalk in question, or that's being discussed, this is the intersection of Shoreline and TK Drive. I think it was not this past fiscal year, but the previous fiscal year. We had originally put in funding, you can see the red line here, that is for the sidewalk, and that's where it would run, from here straight down past the fountain and tee in there. Of course, this was all, this was all conversation prior to the signalization going in by SCDOT. As SCDOT put in that signalization, we started talking to them about sidewalk, and that's when they informed us that the white line running perpendicular to TK Drive, we would have to install that crosswalk there. We were only anticipating having to do the one. And then we'd have to do the pedestrian poles, similar to what's already out there. Currently, the lower left-hand red circle, that's where folks coming down the trail come into this parking lot. They would follow the trail around, up and down the hill, and there is a crosswalk marked there. I know for the past couple months, as we've been installing the water booster pump station that's next to the trailhead restrooms, that hill area, which is, I don't know if you can see the green pointer on that screen, is right there. That area has actually been closed down for the past couple months because it's inside the construction area. In the next couple weeks, that area is going to be opened back up as they've completed the work. So that's just to kind of give you a ballpark idea of what the area we're looking at and kind of the framework. The pricing I'm about to talk to you about is just for the sidewalk here and the inclusion of the handicap ramps.
Which one, Charlie? Because your pointer's not working over there.
Yep,
You said
that red line.
for the red line
Yep,
up
for the
on
red
the
line.
street. Okay.
Tim Gillette has talked to SCDOT. They will include the,
At the same time?
probably, and we can price that out as we're looking at TEP funds.
So the need for this, is this based on school kids walking home, they're going off on the street?
So
I had, when I brought this to council and we got it on there 2 years ago, it was because predominantly the school children. Sorry. It's predominantly the school children. But I also, because the Living Memorial Gardens work with a lot of the older population, and they had a really great difficulty getting from Trailhead to the gardens. And also runners would, a lot of people pass you when you're working in there as a volunteer. So you hear a lot of stuff. So yes, you can go up on where Charlie was circling along that hill, and it is steep. So people, I'm talking about older people, they can't go up that. If you're talking about a walker or a wheelchair, that is definitely too steep. So they would then go on the road, or they would have to get dropped off. I've had complaints from bikers, runners, who have to go that way and then go through, and then people don't really want to stop when you're going across Shoreline Parkway, where the larger circle is that shows that crosswalk. And I've experienced that myself as an adult, so I can only imagine children. But people are in a rush, and they don't want to stop. So the main reason was because the school children. wanting to have a continuous, connectivity to the school, so.
I mean, is there any opportunity, if it makes sense, if we look for alternatives? Because now we're already at almost 23,000, and then we're talking about more curb cuts to do the continuation and taking out landscaping and on and on and on. Is there any possibility of leveling out the hill in any
No.
way that would be
I
less
cannot see-
expensive if you could even do it?
Not where it's located.
Yeah.
It's really close to where the waterfall area
Yeah,
is.
yeah, no,
And I mean, literally, you'd have to, I don't know, you'd probably have to cut into the berm and put up a retaining wall of some sort on both sides.
Well, why can't you extend the path at the bottom of the hill as opposed to going over the hill? And then you could pick up the parking lot at the same time. If you come off the path just before you hit the hill, and you go straight to the parking lot, and curve around to that crosswalk that's there now,
Come around the bottom of the hill.
come around the bottom of the hill, and you could put a path in that way. It's gotta be cheaper than the $22,000. You know, and then that would allow those who are working in the garden to park in that parking lot and then walk a straight path over to the crosswalk
The
there.
volunteers who work in the garden don't have a problem. They're all very mobile, which is why they're able to volunteer. It's, what we do is very physical over there. It's really for other people trying to get to the school. We've got a lot of runners who are going outside the city, bikers, that kind of thing.
I can work with Tim and we can look at other alternatives, including potentially lowering the berm, with retaining walls, things like that to where it's not as steep.
Yeah.
Maybe even bringing the pathway around. Unfortunately, the only aerial I had, this is from the 2014. They haven't put up the 2015 yet. It doesn't show the restroom area in there yet.
Yeah.
So,
That's gonna end my suggestion.
I mean, it
think
is
it does.
a large increase, because originally it was $8,000
Yeah.
for this project.
right.
So it's a huge change.
Well, it seems like if you're gonna do the sidewalk, might as well include the other part, you're gonna have to do it anyway, right?
We can price that out,
Unless you're
absolutely.
planning on just tying it in through the parking lot.
From a safety standpoint, I wouldn't be in favor of tying it in just to the parking lot.
So you're gonna end up doing that other part anyway, so might as well just make it all as a package deal.
Well,
I can
be not
rework
much
it.
nicer if we could get the funding to do
Yeah.
it. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, I
taking
might have a pretty good
23,000.
relationship with the chairman of RFETS this to go around. So I might be able to
Really?
convince him. Yeah, I think I might have a good.
That's good. You talk to
relation,
him,
yeah.
would you?
Yeah. I'll look in the mirror
Take him
tomorrow
out
when-
for a drink or something.
Look him in the mirror tomorrow when I'm shaving.
Exactly.
All right, well,
Sounds great.
Yeah. All right, so then, yeah,
Get back to
find out
us
what we
and-
got. And maybe get Susan to talk to David Hooper about how we can get that on there now.
Okay,
Because I think they're looking for projects.
okay,
At least I heard that last time.
okay.
Any other things for that item?
Thank you, Charlie.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
really appreciate it.
We good?
yep.
All right. 1B, which is the ordinance 77 sign regulations.
Everybody have a chance to look over it. It's put in the box, in Dropbox for you. We just recently redid this, the sign regs back in October of 2015. And this was based on, David and Ryan, this is more for you, you guys, based on meetings that Susan, Britt, and Tom Goebel had with members of the business community out in Stonecrest. They felt like our sign regulations were making it difficult for them to let folks know, hey, we're here, we're open, come spend your money here in Tega Cay. They didn't get everything they wanted, but they were very happy with the recommended changes that ended up going through. I think a lot of what they asked for wasn't unreasonable, and council obviously found it to not be unreasonable either as they adopted it. One of the issues that I have always had with our sign regs is I don't know that the layperson can just pick up a copy of this and understand where I can put a sign, what kind of sign I can do. It's complicated. I think it covers everything. I mean, it's pretty comprehensive. I mean, it may be the thickest sign regs that I've seen recently, but it is comprehensive. I think the Planning Commission and Susan have done a good job with what we have. As Jennifer spoke at one of our previous council meetings about them picking it back up and continuing to look through this. My personal opinion is, and I don't know what all we should change, but I would love to see it simplified and, you know, to where, I mean, our Development Services Department has cliff notes that they hand to people to explain to them the sign regs. You know, because, I mean, this is pretty thick, and one of the things that we've talked about, both with previous councils and on staff, is how we can make sure that our code of laws is understandable by the general public. So
How are those Cliff Notes received?
Cliff Notes received what?
Received by the people who are looking for sign regs?
They're-
Do they look at them and they say, hey, this makes perfect sense? Or do they have questions? Because that,
Usually they have questions.
Because maybe the Cliff Notes should be the ordinance?
yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Well, potentially, but I mean, obviously, the Cliff Notes leave a lot. I mean, there's still more that has
Yeah.
to be included into it, but that may be a starting point and go from there. I'm not certain. One other change that we made, I guess, a year ago, around this time, or maybe 2 years ago, we used to have regulations on political signs in here. At the advice of our attorney, took all mention of political signs out, basically because there was a Supreme Court case that says you can't treat political signs different than any other signs. And so we treat them just like we would any temporary sign. But I don't know what other changes that y'all have heard that need to happen through here. I know Susan met, Jennifer, I believe you were at the meeting, met with Planning Commission, and I see where Planning Commission is coming from exactly. Just, we asked, hey, can y'all start looking at the signs again? They said, well, no. We want to know what y'all want changed, what council wants changed, and even suggested perhaps even a workshop with council. I don't know if a workshop with council is necessary, but I definitely think we need to provide them some guidance if council would like to move forward with this. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to you guys and take notes.
I want to add just a little bit more from what their suggestions were.
Planning Commission?
Yes,
Jen?
Planning Commission, and Kathy Masters is here. Basically, they did put the majority of this committee put an enormous amount of time into this. And the reason why it is so thick is that certain roads are state roads versus other types of roads. So you had to make all these stipulations, well, if it's on this road versus this road. So some of it is because of that, why it is complicated. But some things they suggested are perhaps putting together some sort of survey for the community, something simple through SurveyMonkey to see what, if anything, people are having problems with. I did relay that some people have come to us, I know at least to me, about realtors, about the open house signs, and I know that we created one after that one particular realtor gave us a template. I'm not sure if it resolved it because I'm still seeing regular open house signs that are not approved being used. Let's see, they talked about perhaps having focus groups to discuss these things, to include realtors, business persons, and residents that are directly affected by these things to get their input. But like Charlie said, I know Susan Britt and probably other staff put in an immense amount of time talking with all the different people at Stonecrest, those business persons at the time, and to see what they liked and they didn't, and that's where the proposals came.
I mean, isn't it really, or is it really that for the most part, the issues were with Stonecrest, with the real businesses? I mean, I have some concerns myself about real estate signs and all, one way or another. But, I mean, to me,
think
that
so.
seemed to be the depth and breadth of the issue.
I think so, because we didn't want a revolving door of businesses not being able to stay in business. And one of their concerns was, well, we all saw it. I mean, a lot of the businesses, just, especially the smaller ones,
Yep, I
could
agree.
not stay afloat. And a lot of them kept saying, I'm not visible from the street.
Yeah.
Or
Right.
I'm
Well,
not.
what happened there with, what was it, an interior designer? Ms. Davis that had the building coming in on the rake?
We didn't have any sign problems with her.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know, I
Yeah.
didn't know if she didn't prefer to have a sign up and then.
She never submitted an application.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so now,
Sign
now the
application.
realtor's in there, they submit an application.
Yeah,
and
she's
good.
Yeah.
She's
Business
subleased.
has to ask permission to put up a sign? They can't just automatically?
Well, it's usually,
No.
if it's new construction, it's included in their construction plans, okay? If like, for instance, our old police station / development services office, which we sold, because it was already existing, there wasn't a sign there, she would have had to have submitted a permit for a sign to go in, for a permanent sign to go in.
What about like in the clubhouse, like city property? I just know there's no signage pointing in any direction of the restaurant.
Right. They would have to request permission to put up signs, especially, here is a little bit different because it's city-owned property, more so than, private business. EDI did have a sign,
Did.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yep.
had a sign.
Yeah,
did.
when we leased at EDI, they
Yeah.
put in a sign permit and had
Yeah.
a sign out.
Well, you know, there isn't a sign that says casual water. When I've said people meet at the, I call it the clubhouse, but
Yeah.
if somebody said meet me at casual water, how would they get there? I mean, how would they know to go?
They don't.
They don't.
There had been
Unless
talks
they know
over the
Clubhouse.
years,
That's right.
from Casual Water about wanting to do a sign. Okay, great, bring your proposal, and didn't get a proposal,
yeah.
so. But now with your new construction stuff, like out in Stonecrest and everything, their sign stuff is all included in their building plan submittal under their new construction.
And I think that is actually what's leading me into the next thing, is that one of the things that was discussed because of the comprehensive plan that involved the community, including business persons, is that we need this to be looked at with fresh eyes from the perspective of the comprehensive plan that was just approved. Because we have several new sections that we're wanting to have zones for.
Right.
So are we looking to that? So let's say we have an arts district, right? Well, we have nothing in there about murals on walls, just an example. Okay,
That's a
there's
good
one right
That's
there.
a good one.
Rock Hill, obviously they have murals, they're beautiful, great way to add, I mean, charm.
downtown
That's not something included in here. So I think from that perspective of us looking at from that, if they could look at our new zoning districts that have been approved that we've never had before, what will those business owners need to
great.
make it succeed?
Makes perfect
And I
sense.
think that could be something they could look at. I do think the simplification, because people are very confused, but I think that could be a direction they could go in.
So this focus group idea that you have, would you invite people to come?
It was a suggestion of theirs.
Okay.
I just wrote down a bunch of their ideas. And there was no, they did not say how they would intend on bringing those persons in, but they did say those different types of persons would need to be included in those focus groups.
Well, if you start with that survey, like you were talking about,
Survey
through
Monkey.
Survey Monkey, that may be a way to at least find folks.
I agree.
That maybe, I mean, they're gonna take the time to fill out a 5-minute survey online.
That'd be nice.
They may be willing to participate.
And if it's just 10
Possible.
questions or less, it's free.
Right.
No
So-
question at the end that asks if you'd be willing.
That's right, submit
Yeah.
your contact information
Willing
for,
to
Willing to serve
Participate
as
in
a
the focus group.
yeah.
Okay.
So,
mean, that might be a
I mean,
good-
I think it's very
good
plausible.
approach.
If
Okay.
they're the ones suggesting it and they're willing to take it from different perspectives like that, I think, let's see what they want to go with it.
As the new liaison to the planning commission, what do you think?
Well, I'll find out Tuesday, won't I?
Or
When it is
do we
Tuesday,
want to
next
ask
Well, they-
Kathy since she's here?
Is it tomorrow night, next Tuesday?
The 8th,
Okay.
But we have a special council meeting that
the
night.
7th. I thought it was.
No, the 7th
No.
is the Super Bowl.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
Council
Okay.
meeting on the 8th and planning commission on the 8th.
Yeah.
I could potentially get
Again,
Susan to maybe
that's
add that to the agenda as far as
First
maybe getting
challenge.
questions for a
Of
survey.
many.
Okay, all right.
What do you think? You know,
I mean,
do a
on its
survey?
face, does it
I'd
make
love to-
sense?
I'd love to tackle it, yeah.
I mean, I think it's a good idea. And I think, not only trying to simplify things, but, and as conservative as I am, I also like to err on the side of not over-regulating people. And and that includes the general public, not just businesses. Because again, I've got some issues with, we're not letting people find houses for sale and things like that. Not
I
that we're
agree.
not, but to be careful that we're not.
I would like-
Those kinds of issues.
Yeah, and I would like the balloon portion to be looked at, because right now, it does not differentiate between commercial versus residential. So,
Ah,
Well, if I can just say, when I was campaigning about where to put the signs out, I even tried to figure out where I was allowed to put my signs and where I wasn't. And I would pretty much put a sign where somebody else had their sign. And I read the thing about
Yeah.
where I'm allowed to put the signs.
guess what? You're not alone. We've all done it.
yes.
Well, I was
Yeah.
thinking maybe, since we're talking about signage, we just lump it, maybe we make a positive regulation, says here's where you are allowed to put your signs or something in there.
That's a
And that-
little
that-
twist.
could
Because
be
I would put my
easier.
sign down, the next day somebody pull it out. And
Now,
For
that wasn't because
$5,
it was in the wrong place. It
Yeah.
was because somebody was trying to say,
Larson was
forget
driving
about
away
him.
like pulling my sign. I know.
You know, because people took
just didn't have
signs down in the
photographic
lot
evidence.
next to me, and I had to keep going,
But that was
putting
very
things back
frustrating
up,
about
and, you
not
know.
doing that all the
Put a
time. And I
buzzer
didn't-
on them.
Yeah,
and I didn't wanna
camera.
put signs where somebody didn't want my
Right.
signs to be. I didn't want to.
You don't wanna
the whole sign
offend.
thing anyway. You know, I didn't want to put any signs, but
Yeah.
if you don't put out
Sign,
signs,
sign, everywhere, sign.
well, maybe that's something to look at too. A
What, is
positive.
music?
type
Yeah.
ordinance. Yeah, that's
Okay.
good.
Okay.
You singing.
Oh, God, that
That's
would,
the easy.
yeah.
On the website.
Don't go too
I'll,
far.
I'll ask Susan to put on their, on the planning commission agenda, for discussion of potential survey questions.
You know,
So we can at
I
least get that.
would like to
rolling.
ask for legal advice in regards to political signs. I
Okay.
realize that we consider them temporary signs, but nowhere in here does it say a political sign is a temporary sign. So it just leaves it open to,
I'll speak to Mr. McLeod when he
Yeah.
returns.
you know,
And actually, they did, the planning commission did specifically bring that up because of the close proximity of each one being placed. Prior, when I was running 2 years ago, I mean, I think it was a quarter mile. You had to stagger these suckers so that you didn't have four right next to each other. And again, they were going from the perspective of, the community kept saying, we don't want a lot of signs.
I agree.
So, and it's just, how else do you regulate it? I mean,
Well-
although people are still on regulations, so it's really, I think it's tough.
there was 86 signs from the beginning of Tega Cay down the median, all the way to the firehouse one year,
Yeah.
for one candidate.
See, that's why I think we ought to get like a chalk outline, like we use in a ballpark, and make little outline circles, and make 6 places, 7 places, really.
Here's where your signs go.
And say, these are only places you can put your signs. And,
Yeah, you just
But we're
have
not-
to see,
but we're not
be
doing
careful.
private
I know you got
property.
the First Amendment issue and all that
but I'm
jazz.
talking about city property. We can
No,
make it,
I'm with you.
I will-
that would cut down on all these people thinking they have to go buy 500 signs or something, or really. 'Cause
Yeah.
if you can get away with buying 8 signs,
I'll talk to Bob McLeod when he
You don't
comes
have to buy
back
any,
in,
do you?
in regards to
yeah, but if
political
you don't,
signs.
you know, people like John
Not a
say, you're
problem.
not really trying.
Thank you, Charlie.
You already told us you're here 8 years, so you better go get your signs printed up.
Just store 'em in the attic.
Yeah, my attic's starting
I'm
to fall
using my
now.
own signs.
Mine are all in my
changing the date.
basement. My name's gonna stay the same. I'm not getting divorced ever.
Mine
Too
were used as
expensive.
target
Too
shooting.
expensive.
Yeah.
Anything
Okay.
else? We good? You
Yeah.
got
Yes.
direction? You good?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right, volunteer
Great.
committees is the
Yes.
C item on there.
is it?
This is something I asked to get put on there. Several years ago, we had a bunch of committees. There was a vote to dissolve the majority of those committees. I still disagree with that vote. I'm not holding anything back, you know, I'm not harboring anything, but I still disagree with that vote. And we do have committees that also seem to, the same people stay on them all the time. And the committee gets a little stagnant. So I'd like to have a conversation about, you know, what do we do with the committees? I'm not saying that the committees are not doing the job that we need them to do now, but sometimes new ideas make things work better and get more people involved. Last night, I got an email or mentioned on Facebook from somebody telling me that we should organize a Panther pep rally for Saturday. And I thought to myself, okay,
Who's gonna do that?
go for it.
Yeah.
Organize it. You know, tell me when to be there. And that's, I'd like to try and get more people involved in what we do here. There are the same 11 people, 12 people that work on the CRC committee every year. And some people do a lot, some people don't, and that's fine. We've got a Board of Zoning Appeals committee that majority of the people stay on there for as long as they possibly can. They stay for a while, and we need to get more people involved. So I'd like to talk about how we get more people involved, so we can move these committees so that there's more. We had the Citizens Academy. And I looked around the room of the Citizens Academy, and the majority of those people were not volunteers in the city. So now they have a new thought in their head about what the city does. So let's piggyback onto that and get them involved in what the city does. Let them get involved in seeing what happens with the city. So that's
So
the
use
reason.
that as a source of recruitment, maybe?
It could be.
City
Maybe
Rock
one
Hill
of the
does.
classes is at the end, say, here's how you can get involved.
Right.
What are some of the more popular committees that have went away? Since
We
the
used,
vote.
we used to have a finance committee, we had a public works committee.
Parks and Rec,
Parks and Rec committee, which really got rolled into community relations.
CRC.
more or less, yeah.
Yeah. And so those were the committees
Those are the
that
three that went away.
went away, yeah.
And you know what, I think part of it is not necessarily the quantity that went away, but the negative attitude that went with getting rid of them has lingered.
Yeah.
I know with the beautification committee, we have had a downward spiral ever since with the amount of volunteers. I think we've gained one volunteer since then, and a lot of them went away. They said, you know what, you don't need us,
Right.
then don't have us.
But the problem, what happened there was a complete misinterpretation of the actions that were taken, from my perspective.
Don't
Right.
disagree.
From my perspective, what we were trying to
yes.
do was eliminate ordinances controlling these committees and the makeup of these committees and all of that, and what, because I was on council at the time that was dissolved, and I voted to dissolve it, but it was to dissolve the ordinances because it didn't think it was something that needed to be regulated in that regard. But just like other things, they get misinterpreted and
Right.
you can't change, that becomes reality, and it certainly wasn't the intention. But there are some people who have interpreted that way, and
Yes.
you're making a very
I
good
agree.
point.
Right.
But I just don't think it's something that necessarily needs to be regulated by ordinance, or maybe it doesn't need to be regulated to the extent that it was. But I'm open to your suggestion, Mayor, or to the idea of it and then figuring out how to do it.
You know, let's kick it around. This is
Yeah.
a workshop. Let's figure out what we could do with it. Rock Hill has a PRT, correct?
They've got a PRT commission that has a little bit more teeth to it than what our former Parks and Rec committee had. Rock Hill's got a lot of committees. I mean, a lot of them. They've got one for each of the youth sports. Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
just nonsense. But keep in mind, I mean, where we've got 1,700 kids in one season, they've got 2,000 kids per sport. Yeah, so it is a different animal. One of the things that we ran up against, as I recall, is Finance Committee, Public Works Committee, Parks and Rec Committee, were starting to come to council meetings. What do you want us to do?
Yes.
That
Yes.
was,
What do you
Yeah,
want us
I
to
agree.
do?
heard that.
You
I
know,
agree.
the committees actually, it was funny, last Friday was my 15th anniversary
happy
with
anniversary.
the city. But I started thinking back to the first Parks and Rec Committee meeting I went to, and I was a department of one, and I needed those volunteers to help with youth registration, to help with work days around the fields and things like that. And it's stuff that staff now does. The Finance Committee, I remember the first budget I ever submitted, we had to submit it to the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee ripped it to shreds, and then they presented it to City Council. Gene Varner wasn't the one submitting it to council. Staff didn't submit it. It was, a group of volunteers. I'll never forget. They looked at my sports uniform line item, and I'd budgeted out. This is how much each uniform's going to cost. This is how many kids we're going to have. And they said, it's too much. We'll give you half.
But, you know,
What?
you
So,
talk
I
to-
mean, but that was that kind of thing, but it evolved, and then it got to the point where staff was doing so much, you had a committee that was, what do we do? What do you need us for?
Yeah.
So,
and I
But
think,
you also had residents who had stake in the game,
yes.
and they want stake in the game. You know, Fort Mill is getting ready to start committees again, which ironic, but we'll leave that one alone. They want to have committees. And I'm thinking to myself, we need to get people more involved. And how do we do that? And if it means, you know, those people who worked on the ball fields, they knew that ball field. That was their ball field. They were not going to do anything to damage that ball field. And I just think that, you know, get some skin in the game.
well, and I think we do want skin in the game, but it's a double-edged sword. What we also need to be careful of, and you're right, Charlie, the situation's very different from a small city to a growing city with a bigger staff, et cetera. If we do go to forming committees or whatever the process is, you really do need to have a city liaison. And the city liaison really, I don't want to say has to call the shots, but they have to call the shots to some degree, because one of the problems that we may have had with some committees that we had is, you know, that the citizens think that, and I don't know how to put this without, you know, getting somebody else excited, but you know, that they can't call the shots.
They're not driving the bus.
They're not. I mean, they can make recommendations. It's a group, it's a democracy, it's whatever it is, but we have budget constraints, we have legal constraints, we have personnel constraints, and Charlie's not gonna have his people who work all day also come to meetings night after night or whatever to talk about issues. And, I mean, there's a lot to it. And so I just think we have to be mindful of a lot of those details in figuring out what the going forward strategy might be.
One committee I think that we're gonna need, whether we start working on that now or maybe, here in the next month or so, something that we've talked about in regards to Catawba Park is a marketing fundraising type committee.
Yep.
Council just last
Yeah.
month, approved to start with the civil plans. I'm having a meeting with Campco Engineering on Thursday. Do we want to start, putting feelers out, to form that ad hoc committee to start developing a marketing plan for, how much do we want to charge to name a field? To put a sponsorship on a field, to put a sponsorship on the concession
Are
stand.
you saying these would be volunteers?
These,
Potentially, yeah.
from in and around the city, I know, City of Rock Hill did something similar when they built, Hargett Park, and then when they did, Manchester Meadows. I mean, almost everything at Manchester Meadows has a name on it. I mean, it's not gaudy, it's not huge, nasty signs or whatever, but, people ponied up the money. Here's what it costs to construct the field. And they paved that construction cost over 5, 6, 10 years, whatever the case may be. It may be a good way of defraying some of that upfront cost on Catawba Park. Do we want to start trying to put that committee together? I mean, that may be one.
And
I
an
don't know if
ad
there are
hoc,
others.
you just key words, ad hoc.
Yes.
And maybe that is an approach that we take, if we get to the point of formulating a strategy. It could be ad hoc committees, which is different from what we had before, which were standing committees, which may or might also get to address the issue of need new ideas from time to time, not the same 11 people. And, even with CRC, who we all know is fantastic, we wouldn't have the events we have without those same 11 people. But maybe we even break that out, or you identify all of the various events that they do every year, and you have people just sign up,
Right.
I can help, with the Fall Festival, or I can help with 4th of July, or
There you go.
whatever,
But
and
I
you
don't want to
get.
be obligated to help out with July 4th if I'm
Right.
just going to do the fall festival, so can I just
Exactly.
do
Yeah.
that?
And so, that might be something that generates
attractive.
people, because I have an interest in one, but, I
Yeah.
can't do it all. It's just like the Italian festival at St. Philip Neri Parish, people sign up for one thing, and then all of a sudden they're doing 30 things
Right.
for the next 25 years, and like myself. But, you have to, if you can, people get tired and burn out too, and they're busy. So,
Right.
I mean, I think that's something to look at as well.
Can you, would you talk with, I guess, senior staff and ask them what their ideas are in regards to committees and what committees they feel we should look at? And I guess come back to us with an idea of what this marketing
Yeah, that's a good idea on its
marketing
face.
plan.
I'd like to,
Okay,
I think.
kind of a thing. And since you brought it up, and I know it's not on the agenda, but I'm going to tell you anyway, the Fort Mill School Board will be hopefully passing a resolution tomorrow night supporting us in the Catawba Park venture. And then the town of Fort Mill will hopefully be doing the same thing at their meeting on February 8th,
Great,
which will help us with the Springs
Yes.
sure.
Duke
getting that
Energy
property. So,
Yeah.
And Duke
It's
Energy as
fantastic.
well. So that's moving along.
Is this
Good.
financial support or moral
No,
support?
it's just, it's moral support. It's pretty much, the Springs family has 15 acres, 12 acres that we would like to
need that
put
land.
ball fields on.
which somehow got misprinted as 52 acres
Yeah.
in the Fort Mill Times. I've already gotten an email from James
Oh,
Strader.
good Lord.
Hey, you realize that we don't have that much land down there for Yes, I know.
Yeah. So in order for them to enter into an agreement with us, because one of their dilemmas was, okay, we're partnering with you, but we're not doing so much with the town of Fort Mill, and how is that going to be perceived politically? So this is going to help us with that aspect of it. Any other comments on volunteer
So,
committees?
all right, I'm discussing with senior staff as far as committees as a whole, and then I'm bringing back to you guys, maybe by your February 16th meeting, ideas on the ad hoc marketing group for Catawba Park.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I'm not quite sure you're going to get an answer on the 16th, because we'd like to know what that all
No,
entails.
I
'cause
was
we don't
figuring
wanna
I'd bring ideas.
We don't want to go down the road that we were down before with an ordinance that
Correct.
creates problem.
Okay.
All right,
Yes, sir.
anything else?
No, it's
That's
good.
great.
I think it's good.
We definitely need it.
Okay. we're on to,
You don't like it, Ryan?
No, I was speaking.
Oh,
Not yet. Yeah.
speak now or forever hold your peace, yeah.
golf carts, 1D, golf carts. Dave,
Well,
you
let me
brought that-
bring that up. As you recall, last time I went to an executive session where our attorney pretty much reiterated that we already knew that it's a state statute and little a city can do. I was just trying to get, kind of like John was saying, we got so many names for golf carts now, personal carts, family carts, whatever else. And the statute was written so long ago that it's not keeping up with the technology or the way people are using carts now. And I was just trying to figure out a way to jumpstart something to go on to make it easier for everybody to use and make everybody realize what's going on. But I know it's a state statute. I was just trying to think of something that we can do as a city to maybe do something and because the state's not gonna take any action on it. There's very few people that are interested in carts in the state. Tega Cay, maybe a dozen people in Baxter. I guess Sun City's now interested. They've got a new cart club. Myrtle Beach,
lot of your coastal
Charleston,
communities,
just
yep.
a very few. And when it comes time, and when you got state legislatures talking about gas tax and building roads and school funding and medical marijuana or whatever else are coming in, the stack of stuff just gets so high that the golf cart issue is gonna be on the very bottom, and it's never gonna come up. It's just not ever gonna come up, and it's very frustrating. It's so easy to solve. And they've actually had a reading on a legislation at one time, and it passed without, any dissent, but it just never came back up, whether that was on purpose or it was just the time clock ran out. So, I mean, I'm happy to do as much as I can at the state level. I go down there every once in a while with the veterans groups, and the senators and the representatives always have us in and ask, our opinions on stuff. And I always bring up the golf carts, and they always know I'm gonna bring up the golf carts, and I'm willing to work it at that end, but it's just, I agree, it's not as serious enough that a state legislature is gonna take it up anytime soon, so.
Whatever happened with a while back, somebody had suggested that if you're a gated community or you're legal inside, and somebody mentioned, well, the fire department, the police department's right there, so it could possibly be interpreted as an entrance, only one egress, one way in, one way out.
The problem is we're not just on the peninsula.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Suggestion, and I've said to both you guys, I think the golf carts are quirky. I think it's kind of neat. It's something that Tega Cay, quirky and stuff.
Yep, it is.
Again, as I've told you before, I don't want to get divorced, so I won't be purchasing one. So a suggestion maybe is writing letters.
As the, now, Mayor Pro Tem, am I allowed to write a letter with that signature block saying, as just me, so I'd have to just do it as an individual, as David Lee O'Neill, just,
I mean, you could write in the letter
As
that
a member
you're
of
the
city
mayor,
council.
as a member of city council or as the mayor pro tem, but you can't sign it for us unless we are all in agreement that a
so it
letter
has to be
should
a
go.
unanimous agreement. I can't just,
Correct.
since it's just me, and I'm only signing me,
You're
I'm not
signing
signing
as
you
a
guys.
citizen,
Yeah.
yes.
But, the other issue is the safety aspect of it. And I know that you guys are working on it as the Carters, and I'd like you guys to continue to work on that, because that safety is a real issue.
Absolutely.
And a real concern for a lot of folks, in the city.
Yeah, an accident doesn't do us any good as a group, so we all know
No.
that, so we all push it all together, so.
Yeah, but I think, and I don't know what the rest of you guys think, but I think if we put pressure, maybe we can get the state legislature to work more than 3 hours a week as opposed to, if we keep pushing them.
Well, I'll keep bringing it up at my end every time I go down there.
But but even if you created some kind of a form letter, and gave the letter to Jen, Dottie, myself, and Ryan, and this is what we need you to say in the letter. Write it in your own handwriting, type it out or whatever, and then, because sometimes someone sitting down to put ink to paper is not as easy as just sitting there and, writing it out. So maybe that's a way of getting it, and if you got 300 Carters or something, each one of them you got 600 letters going down there. And if they go down there on Monday, great, call on Wednesday, say, did you get my letter? Just keep, and I wouldn't just send it to our delegation.
Yeah, right. You might actually want to cherry pick all the ones that have this issue before them.
I actually called the Hilton Head delegation, that's where I got my information a long time ago, that this was already before the legislature. I had no idea before, so. And I posted that on we have a Cartaholics Facebook page that we put all the information that you were asking for. Everything's on there.
But I think if you can just get, and flood them with letters,
All right.
And
you know.
I wanted to ask you, Charlie, do we have, I know that the police department has put together a brochure regarding the state
That's correct.
laws. Is that still
Actually, we
on the
work
city
with,
website?
Yeah, it
Okay,
is.
fantastic.
And every time we have an event, we being the Cartaholics, we always put, I think we actually put that on the 4th of July. We pass that out to all the
Yep.
people.
We work with them to create that,
And we
create a flyer
posted
they're
that.
passing.
That's
around.
Posted it on our Facebook site.
And I know it went out, I think, on 2 e-blasts this year to the entire, or last year. I'm
We'll,
sorry,
and
to the
we'll
city.
start pushing out again in our newsletters and stuff like
Great.
that as the weather starts to warm, just reminding folks, and then we'll do it again in the summer.
I think the biggest concern, I'm sorry,
No.
is kids driving carts, right?
It's the number one
Yeah.
complaint we
Yeah,
get.
Yeah.
that'd be,
That's a big one.
That's your-
That's huge.
that's
Yeah,
what
we
I
don't-
hear the most.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't get calls at PD for people driving at night or things like, some kid just went barreling past
hanging
me and
off.
had 20 of his buddies
Yeah.
hanging off of it, and they're all 12. Yeah.
Well, a couple of the manufacturers that I deal with a lot, I talked to, said this is just one, they said they're delivering 2 a week to Tega Cay. This is back when it was warm. I'm sure that it went, the sales are down as it's got cooler, but I expect that to be just as big. As we get more people in here and they see the traffic problems we have, especially like on the 4th of July or something, it just makes sense to get around on your personal cart versus
I mean, I
driving
think,
your car or
I
your
think a
truck.
big reason that the sales escalated, at least in the short run, was because of the school opening. And a lot of people are just driving their kids up and picking them up on those as a convenience.
But it is quirky. The events, my wife says real estate, and she was showing houses to somebody one time, and she asked them, why do they want to live in Tega Cay? And everybody always answers the schools. And they said, no, we did this golf cart event there, and we want to buy a golf cart and be a part of it. And my wife turned around and just thought, that is quirky. But
Yeah,
for people to
really.
buy a house so they can ride a golf cart around. So
I mean, it
By
is
the end of
fun
the
and
year,
it
you're
is nice and it
taking
is
them to Walmart.
convenient, but
that's
Yeah,
right.
hopefully.
Yeah, when Hubert Graham Way opens.
it is
You
expensive.
absolutely will be able to.
Theoretically, you could do Hubert Graham Way down to Dam Road, down to Catawba Park.
Yep.
You might be getting outside the 4 mile at that point, but
Well, as a crow flies, it's still in.
as the crow flies,
Yep.
absolutely.
And when that
Absolutely.
Now
time
we have to
comes-
put wings on our cars. So
Well, we're going to have to,
stay
that's-
compliant.
Doesn't
What's
say
the
as a-
statute say, It says 4 miles.
It
just
doesn't
says
say crow
which
flies or anything
direction.
else. Exactly.
But most carts will do about 12 miles. If you think about, they're built to,
Right.
for
For
2
capacity,
turns
yeah.
on the golf cart, which
Yeah.
is about 6. We'll have to talk at a later date about putting some kind of electrical bank out there so people can recharge their
Recharge
carts or
up.
something. I mean, people really want to go out there and do that, drive all the way over. It's a second car to a lot of people. It's cheaper and to maintain and all, so we'll see what happens.
Now, in regards to the issues we have with the kids driving up and down the trails, and usually they're headed to Windjammer or the Beach Club, it seems like. Now that Chief Parker has gotten his mission focus group more assembled, through the course of that first year, we're gonna see the police golf cart out. And it's not just enforcement, it's, hey, how you doing to the walkers, and joggers, and, it's super hot today, here's some bottled water, that kind of thing. But being a lot more visible through that area so that, hey, here comes the,
People like that.
20 kids hanging off a golf cart. Hey, what's your mom and dad's phone number? Let's go ahead and get them on the phone, because you're not supposed to be doing this. So, we were real shorthanded last summer as we were going through some transitions, but Chief feels very good about where they are now, so, going into this year. So, I'm looking forward to hopefully curbing some of that, because he's said it at a number of different talks. Vintage Club, I know he's been to the men's breakfast group and whatnot. That's the biggest complaint we get on the golf carts is kids. Kids on the carts, so.
Oh, and they're out at night too. They come
Yeah.
around that corner around my house all the time. But you can't, by the time you call the police, they're gone, so there's
Yeah.
really
And
no
it's
point
safe
in
to
calling
assume the
them.
kids are repeat offenders, parents that continuously
Well, they're-
allow their
Oh,
kids.
yeah, I know that because the parents think it's perfectly legitimate and we should mind our own business.
And one brand of golf cart key works in all the other golf carts that
Yes,
are
it
that brand.
does.
So
Is
there's
that
no-
right?
Yes, it does.
Am I just announcing
Oh,
something?
snap,
people
you
don't
really,
know?
yes, you did. Yes, you
But every club cart
did.
key
There's a lot of carts
turns on
missing
every
at
club
Tega Cay
cart key in the whole United States.
I'll be doggone.
Wow.
That
Unless
is-
somebody has put in a special locking
Wow,
device.
now
or
there's
something.
gonna be a whole theft thing going on.
There's a new business.
I was actually gonna ask about regarding driving at night. When I spoke with Chief Parker, he had been receiving calls about that, but a lot of residents tell me they don't call because they know there's no way to really track them down, or by the time the police officers would get there, because of where they're living, they'd be at their house by then.
Yeah.
And I know that I think, well, I was curious if we do want to look at, because getting something attached to having our own penalty for someone driving at night.
I'll be honest, right now with PD, golf carts driving at night are not our number one, not their number one concern.
Okay.
It's not something that they're actively riding around, let me find somebody
I
riding on a
agree.
golf cart. I don't know as the city manager that I really want that to be their top priority. But at the same time, if they obviously if somebody pulls out in front of them as they're on patrol and they're on a golf cart, they are stopping them. Hey, you're not, I mean, it's midnight. You're not supposed to be out on the golf cart. Yeah, we want you to be safe. When you need to get home, that kind of thing. But they're not actively, cruising around the
Pursuing.
And I
peninsula
wouldn't
trying to
want them
find.
to, but I've been told by many people that's why they don't worry about driving at night.
Because there's
Well,
no
because-
penalty for
Right.
doing it.
And
There
probably,
is,
I don't even know if
but-
any tickets have even been written. I think some warnings, but I'm not aware of any being written at night.
We've not prosecuted anybody on it. No, not as of
So
yet. No.
perhaps that's something we could consider at a future time if this does not curb itself. We have been putting out quite a bit of marketing. I don't know how else we're going to get it out there. We've done it all over Facebook, through the e-blast. We've talked about it, I don't know how many times during council meetings. But I have not noticed an improvement. Now, it could be because I live in the older section where it's a lot easier to just cut through the golf course, to go to people's houses, to get from yours. That could be why, but I am concerned about people who driving that late at night and you just can't see them very well. It's just really a safety thing for me.
Oh, yeah, it's dangerous. There's
It's
no
very
doubt about it.
dangerous.
I mean, the golf course is not lit at night. I
Well,
mean,
that's
the
supposed to be on
road,
the golf course
Majority of
Paths
the
are
streets in
dark.
TDK aren't lit at night.
that's
Right.
fair.
Well, and yeah, that's,
And
I
traditional
guess because
TDK,
we
yeah.
live in the older part, there's very few, if any, streetlights.
No, there's no
And there's,
TDK
there's
lot in
hardly any
Lakeshore.
sidewalks, so there's really there's not a lot of
Well,
wiggle
leeway.
room, yeah.
intersections anyway. Yep.
But perhaps that's something we could look into if we can't get an improvement on reduction of driving at night.
Well, I don't think you're gonna get a reduction in driving at night. I really don't, because, as Dave's saying, that, 2 a month are being purchased in Tega Cay, so that means, and, one of the biggest problems we have in Tega Cay when we have events, we have no parking.
Yeah.
And that, that is
Carriages,
a
carts, yeah.
large problem. Where are you gonna park? And then
Okay.
if you go and you have a party and people don't go in a golf cart or go together, then you got the road blocked.
Mm-hmm.
And how is someone who's not invited to the party, other than being annoyed not being invited to the party, but how are they gonna get home if they can't get through because there are cars on either side? So that's, I don't really know if we're gonna be able to curb that. I just really, I'm gonna rely on the carters to educate people about it and, get the lights if they have them. Because if you don't have lights on it, it's just stupid.
Right,
Well, if you
well,
don't have
that-
lights,
yeah.
that's a non-starter
Yeah,
right
yeah,
there. I
that's-
mean, that's a golf cart. Well, something that doesn't have lights is a golf cart.
Yeah,
The carts
that's just
nowadays are called personal, like we said, personal carts, family carts, whatever, and they come with 500 feet range LED lights on the front that'll blind you.
Yeah.
I often wonder why they don't turn them down lower, because one goes up this way and one goes up that way. And it's just, in the old cars, we used to be able to
With a
kind
screw.
of tune them.
Yeah.
These carts come one way,
Yeah.
and they really do. They're so bright. It's incredible. I don't know how anybody could not see a cart coming by.
I guess it's the older ones that I'm
It's probably
seeing.
maybe.
Or
is-
batteries dying,
Or
maybe.
batteries dying, yeah.
Batteries
because
are
electrical.
dying. Yeah.
electric
The
problems.
thing is, from a
Okay.
safety perspective, it's not as safe as a vehicle, but it's safer than riding your bike to the clubhouse.
It's
or
15
walking
miles an
to
hour.
the
It's-
Or at
clubhouse.
least as safe.
People
around
could
the
fall out of a
curves.
golf cart and not get hurt. Well, some people, I guess, could. I don't know.
Bazinga!
Ow.
They actually
Bazinga.
researched that. That's the number one accident, right there, people falling out.
I retracted that as I was thinking. But the issue is, the family who gets a cart, a personal cart or a family cart, they go up to the softball field, and the coaches keep the kids later, or they don't realize. I'm guilty of that myself. I go someplace and I don't realize how late it is, and you know,
Or the time change.
the time change or whatever, and you're getting out there and it is dark. You're like, uh-oh, am I in trouble? And the one lady that I know that got pulled over, she got so upset she sold her personal card because she was, you know, didn't want to break the laws. But it's a funny thing. But I think most times if you see lights that aren't working too well, it's the batteries are going out, because those cart lights are very bright.
All right. Anything else on golf course?
Now, I'll just take that up with state. I'm happy to try that up there with them
Yeah.
again and again and forever.
Anything else? We good? Item number E, or item letter E, growth.
Everybody's
favorite topic.
In our previous conversation, one of the questions that came up is, can we get a list of, you know, what is going on around us? As Kathy Master said during public comments, you know, our last 3 annexations, the Cameron Creek, River Falls, and then the Storm property, before we annexed and rezoned it, the Storm property was 90 townhomes?
111.
111 townhomes. And now it's 45, it's zoned for 45 patio homes. Okay, so even though it may be a while before anybody builds on that. Yeah, Cameron Creek was, I want to say, up in the 400 range. Now it's down in the 350 range. Yeah, River Falls was 150, 160. Now it's down in the 110, 120 range. And depending on what happens with Army Corps, it may even be less than that. But in any event, what you've got here is a map we were able to get from York County.
This is great.
If council wants, I mean, it wouldn't be that big of a deal to hang it on the website if folks are interested in it. But basically, you can see the grade area outlined in, we'll call it red, is Fort Mill, incorporated Fort Mill. Obviously, the gray area outlined in yellow is Tega Cay. Your dark purple, whatever brownish color that is. You've got commercial and kind of that rose color, and then your brownish color is the preliminary plats. And that's showing throughout the entire township. So as you look at what's coming in around us, Merritt Meadows, everybody's familiar with where that is. Hawks Creek, everybody's familiar with that. Brooks Creek, that's an Eastwood townhome project that's basically going to be beside and behind the Sim building.
Oh,
Okay, you know, the field to the left, and then the property back behind it, that's townhomes. So if you look down here, Brooks Creek, that is it's 11 total acres, 60 lots, 5.45 units per gross acre, and those are all townhomes. Okay, the Arbors, that is the apartments on the old driving range behind McHale's.
Yeah.
And you can see that is 220 apartment units going in there. That was approved back when David Bowman was on county council. So it's been 4 years now, 6 years now? 6 years. Obviously, they haven't moved on it, but it's permitted, ready to go. Eppington South, no, I wouldn't consider that. That's just them finishing up the last phase of that. Wilshire Falls, going on as you move on down Gold Hill Road there. Wilshire Falls is 77 single-family detached units on 28 acres. You've got Gold Hill Apartments as you cross over 77 there. And that is, where is Gold Hill Apartments? 280 apartment units going in over there. As you come back down 160, so I'm just kind of looking at our little corridor neck of the world. Braden, you can see, yeah, everybody's familiar with where that is. 220 units there. And then on top of that, as you get down closer to the overhead power lines and the what is the AutoZone that's down there?
Yeah.
That's where those apartments are. Yeah, here I think it's interesting that they show it like it's two separate developments. Well, the Fox Apartments or Fox Hunt Apartments are part of the Braden property, the Braden development. So your Fox Hunt, that's your 276 apartments right there on 160. So that'll be a lot of fun. The Willis property is in Tega Cay. It's going to connect over to Cawthorpe.
Which one?
Willis properties in
Tega Cay,
Fort
Or, I'm sorry,
Mill.
Fort Mill, sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Willis property's in Fort Mill, connects over into Cawthorpe. And then you've got Habersham. So Habersham's actually in the county, 189 single-family units. And then the Willis property, 931
Oh, my
single-family
gosh.
homes, townhomes and apartments. So it's a combination thereof going in that bad boy. So needless to say, and then you've got the storage units going in on Ralph Norman's property on further down closer to the Wendy's down there. You can just see it just says storage there. So what's coming in up against our borders? There it is. A lot. Right outside our jurisdictional
And I'm
boundaries.
guessing we don't really know time frame for all of these. We just know they're approved.
Their plats are approved.
Okay.
I mean, it's done. At this point, it's either started construction like Braden and Fox Hunt, things like that, or they're waiting on preliminary plats, things of that nature. But the plans and everything are already approved.
And that nice white spot by Eppington South there, that's just been purchased, and there's a potential of 900 apartments going in there.
Oh, good Lord.
I've been told that it won't get approved, but we'll see. With that, you know, we do have some developments that we could have come before us. And I asked Charlie to give us a cheat sheet of what we could do on our part as far as trying to reduce the density or reduce the amount of growth. And Charlie, could you walk us through these?
Sure.
These classifications and zoning districts and stuff like that, and potentially what we could move to, so we can give you some kind of direction if someone comes to you saying, hey, I want to do this.
I'd be glad to. Your second column, zoning district, these are your current residential zoning districts that exist in Ordinance 77 here in Tega Cay. So R3, that's where your multifamily, your apartments, that's where it would reside. All the way down to R15, which are your biggest lots, your least dense, if that makes sense. So what I asked Susan to do and worked with her on putting this together was, let's take this as a 20-acre development. Yeah, I mean, it's very rare that somebody's going to come to us with 10 acres and say, hey, I want to bring this in as all residential. They're not going to be able to put enough into it to even mess with it. So just using 20 acres is really just kind of your example. So and I'll move across, we'll start with R3. Your minimum lot area per square foot is 3,000 square feet, and these are set by code. Your minimum lot width is 50 feet, your length is 60 feet. That's where you come up, obviously, with your square footage of 3,000. Your gross dwelling units, that's DUs, dwelling units per gross acre. Now, this is including your open space, your right-of-way, everything, okay, from wall to wall, would be 15 units per gross acre. Now, from that, when you back out the acreage that would be required by code for typical road, water, and sewer lines, which you can see your notes at the bottom, that's based on 1,320 linear feet of road with a 50-foot right-of-way, which is required by code for a local residential street. And then the acreage needed for open space, which for your single-family attached and multifamily, which is what you would see in R3, is 30%. They've got to make as open space for public use. So you back out 12.6 acres, that ends up giving you your net acreage as far as what they would actually be able to build on as far as buildable lots. So it takes that 15 dwelling units per acre down to 10.74 per acre. So for a 20-acre site, it'd give you 214 units. Okay, so that's how this chart works. And it's just to give you a sense of what our population or what our zoning densities would give you. Probably our most predominant throughout the city zoning classification is R10. We've got more R10 than anything else within the city. So as you look across that on a 20-acre site, just going all the way to the end, basically we give you 73 homes. Now, the one thing that we didn't calculate into here is like an amenity center or something like that, which, yeah, would reduce that number down a little bit, unless they were able to fit it within the, a portion of it within the open space area kind of thing. So, let's say in Lake Ridge, pods E, F, G, and H. Okay, so those are your normal to larger size lots. Your minimum or your smallest lot width is 60 feet, and your largest is 105 as far as your lot width. So they're doing pretty good sized lots down in Lake Ridge. Just with those four, and that's leaving out Pod A and Pod B, which are more your patio style homes.
Right.
The rest of Lake Ridge, you're on a net, you're at about 1.5 homes per acre on net. Okay. On a gross, you're at 2.5. So Lake Ridge went with bigger lots. That obviously they've gone with bigger homes. Yeah, the executive session or section that they're doing in Pod H are huge. But even the stuff that's in your Pod F, Pod C and D, those are still, I mean, you're looking at 3,600 plus square foot homes. I mean, they're good size homes down in there. So one of the conversations was maybe a way to control density, control the growth, things like that, is maybe take a look at the density numbers. If council wants to consider, asking planning commission and working with reworking some of these numbers. I want to throw this caveat out. You can't exclude something from your zoning. So you couldn't say, well, we're getting, let's see, multifamily apartments, will they fit in R3? Okay, let's get rid of R3. You still have to provide for it in one of your zoning classifications, but that doesn't mean you have to zone something
We
R3.
can tell the developer we're not
Correct.
zoning R3.
Yes. You
So-
can deny
It's-
an R3
As long-
request.
As long as we have it in our ordinance, we're covered, but if
Right.
if we don't want to zone anything
Correct.
R3, that's also within our,
Right,
That is
within our
correct.
purview.
Could we
That is
deny a strip club?
yeah, that's different.
No. You can deny the zoning request, but you can't specifically exclude it from fitting in within one of your zoning classifications.
I
Okay, so
specifically
then-
asked
so then
that of
I
Susan
think-
Brett
wait
at
a
a
I
meeting.
think, so if I'm understanding you correctly, Sally wants to put a strip club in,
Of course,
okay? Sally can
And
put a
Sally
strip
would.
club in.
you know
But,
her.
or she can buy the building to put a strip club in. She comes to us for the zoning, and we can say no.
That's correct.
Right.
So, so ultimately, who's responsible for saying no? Is it the planning commission, or is it council?
No, any rezoning is done with a joint public hearing of planning and council.
Okay,
But
so
city
then the
planning will make the recommendation to approve or deny, but ultimately,
We make the
the
decision.
city council makes the decision.
Which would
on
be the same thing in regards to this zoning of this,
Well,
Not,
let's-
not to hang on the strip club, but.
Yeah, that was
what-
just an
what-
example.
No,
I'm
but
just-
that's all right, but just use that, because it's offensive. When we did, well, to me,
It's a male strip club.
still offensive, even worse. I don't like Speedos on the beach, I don't even.
Remember,
Well,
we are.
A few years ago, remember when we were doing the marina districts, and I thought we included in that work, the types of
Keep in mind, that's an overlay
establishments.
district.
Yeah, oh, that's what it was.
That's your difference. You can, if you do an overlay district, which York County just did for, I don't think it was all of, but a good chunk of Lake Wiley, they put in an overlay district that gave it a little bit different constraints than what just your straight base zoning would be.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
Thank you.
let's, instead of using bad examples, let me use a good example here. A lot of cities don't allow apartment complexes. Like, I think Matthews or Mint Hill or somebody over there doesn't. And if we wanted to maintain, I don't know if Fort Mill does apartments, but we don't want to be Fort Mill. Let's just say we want to be Tega Cay. We want to be more exclusive with these big homes. Can we do whatever we can to discourage apartments, or can we make apartments bigger, or can we make apartments? What can we do to, if we just decided as Tega Cay, we're better than apartments, we want to be more exclusive or something.
Okay.
What can we do to discourage such
Right now-
high-density apartments?
Right now, inside our jurisdictional boundaries, you do not have anything specifically zoned for apartments. Okay, now you have an apartment complex that's coming into Stonecrest. That is part of their PDD, okay? And it was specifically put into the PDD to allow for it only on these two specific lots, okay? So fast forward, somebody comes in and says, hey, I've got 20 acres. I want it zoned R3 because I want to do apartments. You can deny the annexation request. You can, if somebody were to, I'll just use Marina Drive. Somebody says, hey, great views of the water. I'm buying up everything on Marina Drive and I want to redevelop it. Okay, well, and I don't know that Marina Drive is zoned R8, but let's say it's zoned R8. Well, you can't do your multifamily in there. Well, I want it zoned R3. Nope.
So as it
You can
stands
deny
now,
that request
we've
all
got
day long.
two plats that are zoned for apartments, that people can put apartments in right now.
It's under construction right now.
And there's
Yep,
no other places that they can even do apartments unless they come and ask for a rezoning.
that is correct.
Gotcha. Unless we annex someplace.
Even then.
Do we have to accept to annex the zoning that's already in York
No,
County? That's our.
Because you're rezoning it, bringing it in. Now,
As you bring it.
what they do is when a petitioner brings us an annexation, okay, they're working with Susan on, okay, what would be I'm zoned this in the county, and I want to continue to do the same thing, but I want city services, then we would work with them to say, okay, this is the zoning classification that's most like what you have now. 9 times out of 10, though, they're going from an RUD in the county to they want R10 or R8 or something like that within the city. So it is a rezoning. Anytime we do an annexation, there is a rezoning. And their application request states what they want it zoned as.
Okay,
Council
so-
can accept it or turn it down.
Good, okay, now, backtrack a little bit. The
Mm-hmm.
2 areas that are already zoned that they could put apartments in, we couldn't change that if we wanted to, right? Because they've already got that zoning and they're the owners of it.
They've got
and
vested
Correct.
That's
rights
a
on it.
done deal, we're already there.
They have
Yep.
vested
Unless
rights.
they ask us to change it.
Correct.
But that was part of the PDD.
It was part of the PDD, so that wouldn't be a straight, simple rezoning. You would have to actually amend the master plan by
Okay.
ordinance for Stonecrest. It's a much more complicated
Right.
process than, hey, I own this one tract of land that's not tied to anything, and it's just zoned this. You still gotta have the, I think it's 15-day public notice. It's either 15 or 30. And Kathy, I'm looking at you in case you may know which one it was. I've got a cheat sheet at the office, but anyway, you gotta do the public notice, you put the signs out, things of that nature.
Cliff
And then,
note,
and then it's
please.
just a simple, would vote and rezone. Now, rezoning, that's one read of council. Okay, but
Yeah,
when
but
we
that-
do,
but-
when we do the annexations and everything, that's done by ordinance, and there's your 2 reads.
I mean, that's really that's the way we control
Yeah.
density.
And we
It's
did a
the way
great
we
job
control
with
growth.
that
Some.
property behind TD Bank.
Mm-hmm.
Huge.
Oh, yeah.
And because we were able to say, no, we don't want this,
Mm-hmm.
and we looked at what we really need in the community, and it is those patio homes. Now, we couldn't go crazy because that had huge topography issues. So
Right.
it's not like we could say, well, we want 1-acre sites and beautiful $300,000 homes
Right.
or 400,000, because they were limited. They couldn't even make any money off
It's a
of it.
giant
So it was
hole.
really
Yeah.
interesting hearing from
Yeah.
their perspective of what they had to do as a minimum,
The
and then
five-
us looking at what we needed to
The
fill.
5 of you have a lot of control as a group, as to what comes in, what it's zoned as. I mean, y'all, council controls that 100%.
And that's wonderful. The problem that we face, and we just look at this map and we see, we control a very small portion of it.
Of the problem.
And so and I'm not saying we shouldn't do everything we can, so I don't know what everybody's views are, but I suspect we're in vehement agreement about it. But it's everybody else, and it's all the things that are already approved and being built or are going to be built that we have no control over. And that's where the problem lies.
At what point in the process do we find out, like, when this developer is about to buy the property and how, I guess we know from the county because they're applying to rezone it, but like, other side.
Well,
So
here's
what's
the
it called,
come
River
straight-
Falls?
Yep.
here's an interesting
You know.
point. Earthworks on 160
Yeah.
near Sam's.
Earth and Woods.
Oh, Earth and Woods, okay. I saw the sign yesterday that had rezoning. That's the first time I ever heard about it. And Kathy's right. The county needs to communicate with us.
We don't, yeah.
There's no communication from the county as to what's going on.
We have to ask.
Yeah.
I mean, like the apartments going up at McHale's.
Yeah.
We've got to ask
Yeah,
what
they
the heck's
came out, well,
going
that's what
on.
I'm hearing, 500 new homes on the other side of the
Yeah.
Patriot.
Right.
Yep.
There's definitely lack of
I
communication.
mean, the problem is they don't care if we know or not. And even if we know, there's not very much we can do except try to have York County or Fort Mill or whatever, as we've tried,
Right.
to, hey, let's work together and let's solve this problem together. But there doesn't seem to be a great interest in doing that, or up to this point, there certainly hasn't been, or else we wouldn't
Well,
have what
to
we have.
To answer Ryan's question, I think though, when does council find out about it? Okay. Typically, the annexation request or whatever will come in through Susan Brett's office. You know, she's the planning and development manager. It will come to her. She notifies me immediately, and we start having the conversations with the developer or proposed developer. 9 times out of 10, they've got it under contract, and the contract is contingent upon them getting annexation and rezoning. If we don't give them the rezoning, basically, the contract falls apart, and the landowner, you know, whoever that may be, still has the property. The developer has moved on to other things. So they come to us and they say, okay, here's what I want to do. Here's what I would like to do, okay? Well, we start having multiple conversations with them at the staff level based on what I have heard city council likes, city council doesn't like. Yeah, I've heard pretty strongly over the last couple of years, city council doesn't like very dense. City council does not like apartments. City council does like commercial. City council would entertain mixed use, you know, things like that. I think at least with the three, with Dottie and Jennifer and George, you know, I think the concept of, okay, well, to get that commercial, it may require X number of rooftops coming in with it. You know, the development you just mentioned, going around the Patriot and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, they came in with a request that hasn't even gotten to planning commission yet. I mean, I basically told the guy, asked the guy, are you trying to get me fired? With the amount of homes he was wanting to put in there.
Tried.
So we have conversations with them, trying to get it at least to a point where, okay, now then it goes to planning, and that's just the way the process works. So it's scheduled to go to planning, I believe, on February 8th. A lot of that's going to be dictated by the meeting I have with them tomorrow. I mean, because it's very squirrely right now, their site plan, and there's some things that they absolutely need to change and fix with it before we waste planning commission's time with it.
I think in previous conversations, we've talked about, say if somebody's gonna put, let's just use the number, 1,000 homes or right up the street from us, that we have nothing to do with. We can't, but we're gonna have to live with.
Right, correct.
That it would be to our benefit to try to annex them, to try to get that down to $700 homes or
700
something.
homes, yeah.
Potentially,
So-
sure, yeah.
So we've had that, I think we've had that, and
Yeah.
some people don't understand, why are we annexing 700 homes into
Oh,
Tega Cay?
that's
River
good
Falls
point.
is a good example of that.
I use an
Maybe
example
Kristen.
with Bob Barkin today, our finance director, as he and I were talking about, you know, potential growth areas and whatnot. And I said, the example I used was, yeah, I don't want to use well, if we don't grow, then we're not going to be able to, yeah, then eventually we're going to die. And I know that has been said by my staff. My feeling on it is, if you want to say so and what's going to be in your front yard, what's going to be up against your front door, the only way to do it is to bring it in. Otherwise, you got no say-so in it whatsoever, and you got to drive through it. You got to sit in it. It's gonna, you know, to a certain extent, it's gonna get built anyway. Now, county
There it
council may beat him up and say no apartments, or, you know, got to go less dense. But at the end of the day, it's still gonna come in. Something's gonna go there, and if you don't have it within your jurisdictional limits, you've got no say-so in
Well, I would
what
just
it
think-
is at all.
My personal
So-
preference, and I think a lot of people, is we gotta try to make Tega Cay different from Fort Mill. Not that Fort Mill's a bad place, I'm not saying
Right.
it's just, but if we look like Fort Mill, why don't we just become Fort Mill? A lot of people say, you know, it's a lot cheaper, it's only one police department, only one fire department, it's only one city manager, if we're gonna look like them, and I.
Tega
and I-
Mill.
Tega, yeah.
As long as
Fort
I get to
Tega.
be the city manager. then-
But
You're good.
I think that's what a lot of people are saying, is the traffic is one thing that's unbearable, but if there's no differentiation, I mean, people move to Tega Cay because of the Tega Cay quirky experience type stuff, you know? And if we're all gonna look the same, if we're all gonna be the same, you know? I like the idea about having those exclusive homes and things like that, but apartments, again, it just throws me back to, everybody's got those, and there is the density, and that's just, and no apartments ever improve. All apartments always get worse over time, and, that's my personal feeling about
And-
apartments. I'm just not a big fan of, although I've had to live in them over the years, but.
Being on staff when the apartment complex is now under construction, when it was in the, I guess we'll call it the planning phase of amending that PD, I can tell you right now, I don't know that there was anybody on planning commission or anybody on council that was in favor of apartments. And, yeah, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. I think one of the biggest things that got folks comfortable with this apartment complex was who the builder was. The fact that they still own and manage and operate every single apartment complex that they've built since the 1970s, which is very unusual in the apartment industry. They're high-end apartments. They're building them to look like row houses like you would see in downtown Charleston or Baltimore, things like that. I don't think it was just because, oh, well, we need apartments. I think it was just a right fit was a lot of what kind of, okay, that does work. That does fit that lifestyle, that image of Tega Cay. Yeah, I think we can grow without becoming the next city over, whether it be Fort Mill or Clover or Lake Wiley or whoever. But if we don't have control over it, then yeah, that identity will merge. You know, you're not going to know where Tega Cay ends and Fort Mill begins. You know, and the only thing that's going to separate Tega Cay and Lake Wiley will be the Buster Boyd Bridge because everything else will blend together. So, yeah, I know people are anti-growth and this, that, and the other thing. My personal feeling is if people could still get from the fire station to Gold Hill Road in the exact same amount of time they could 15 years ago, they wouldn't care how many rooftops were here to a certain extent. But yeah, I mean, growth is hard. It's got to be managed properly. But if we don't have it inside the city, we don't have any say-so in it whatsoever. We just got to watch it come up around us.
And we don't get any of the money coming in either.
Well,
You don't get any revenue.
A misnomer is growth always pays for itself, and we now see by our own tax bills that growth doesn't pay for itself. Our tax bills are going up because of growth, mostly from the schools. So that's another thing that people are, I know a couple of people that moved out of Tega Cay because of the taxes, and then now they think they're going to be back in Tega Cay someday because they're kind of creeping up on them. So
Explain to me duplex.
Basically, it's a house. It's almost like the Pinwheel patio homes.
Okay.
Okay,
Except
but
there's
you've
only
basically
two.
got 2 units. It's almost like a 2-sided townhome.
And it
So
has
like
an
Stone
entrance
Crest.
on either side,
It's kind of like Stonecrest Villas. Yeah.
Okay.
except it's 2 instead of 4.
And typically, the people don't own the actual properties. It's a rental basis.
Oh,
Whereas
really?
Stonecrest, a lot of the duplexes, you have a single owner, and they're renting out the 2 units.
because if it was owned, it'd be called a townhome or something.
Correct.
A
Yeah.
duplex, I think, infers it's rented.
So can we take this R6 and take duplex out of it?
Not sure. That is a question I can ask. Turn the page here. We
And
do
not have
have,
duplex
now,
at
we
all?
do have
And not have
duplexes in the
duplex
city. Catamaran,
Yeah, here, we can't do anything
Pele,
about it.
things like that. I mean, yeah, it wouldn't change anything there, but we do have some that are duplexes.
I'd
Doesn't
prefer a
mean you
patio
can't-
home to a duplex.
Understood.
Anytime somebody owns something is always better than if somebody rents something. They just
Well, in
take
Philadelphia,
better
they were
care
called
of it.
twin homes.
They got stake in the game.
And that's
maybe
not,
that's-
and
Right.
that's,
maybe
that's
that's
a
what-
home, not a duplex here may mean apartment, or it may mean a twin homes.
Right.
And twin homes are 2 separate owners.
Let me go back.
It's like a brownstone
Yeah.
It is.
kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Let me go back and look in 77 and see if we've actually got duplex defined.
Yeah.
Whether we want either is a different
And if we
story.
don't have it defined, we can take that out. That may have just been a term that Susan put in there as she was describing the typical development type. But yeah, let me look into that.
If I could just mention that one of the things that kept coming up in the comprehensive plan is that we don't really have a product for those who have moved out of homes, that have lived here and now graduated or are still in college and to come back. There really is no space for them.
It's true.
So my only concern with us getting rid of something that allows someone to rent is we still have a void in that circumstance. And I'm not going to include the apartments because when we talked about the apartments, we had said that those are upscale.
Yeah,
They're gonna be requiring a lot of significant
Yeah.
money showing that they would have, which means you're not talking about college students. So my only concern about getting rid of something that allows renters, I mean, I hear the concern about not being upkept or kept up, is that we're still gonna have a void for that population that's wanting to live here and to keep living here.
One of
So-
the studies that I've read recently is that crowd, that college graduate right out of school, they're looking for those Ayersley-type communities,
Right.
like you got up on 49, that live-work community.
Right.
That's where I think our new zoning district that we just put in last fall, I think may lend itself towards that mixed-use development to where you
Okay.
can have the retail office space on the first floor, your condos for
Oh.
rent or purchase on your second,
third.
third, fourth floor,
Okay.
that type thing, may lend itself more to that live-work community. They, you know, where they can, hey, I'm gonna go downstairs and walk across the street and I'm at my job, you know, kind of thing, or I'm working from home. Yeah, it's still, I think with the mixed use, you still have that opportunity.
Okay.
But you're zoning it as mixed use instead of just straight R3 or something like that. I think it still lends itself towards that.
Okay.
Charlie, I thought before this meeting, I already knew the answer, but can I rent my house if I wanted to move?
Yeah.
There's no
Yes.
special ordinance
No.
for that? I can just. put a
We don't
sign-
allow for short-term rentals, which I think we classify as 30 days.
Correct.
You can't do that, but yeah, and then obviously once it's not listed as your primary residence, then York County will tax it at 6%.
Right, okay. But there are probably a lot of rental properties, I mean, a lot of.
There are a lot of
properties
homes that are being rented
rental.
in Tega
But
Cay.
Kids could probably move into that. I know that's not the kind of the stucco, the
And I think.
facade they want. you
Right,
know.
and I think Charlie hit it on, is also not only what you mentioned, but they also want the social aspect. Because usually you're not married yet or don't have a companion, whatever you want to call them, but, so a social aspect is important for these folks.
Right.
So, yeah.
This 50-foot right-of-way, is that our restriction? And can we increase that?
That is in your development code
So
for your
can-
street standards.
So
Oh,
can we
you can,
change that?
yeah, I mean, you can amend it. 50 foot for a local residential street, I mean, you've got different right-of-ways, depending on whether it's an arterial road, a collector road, or, yeah, this local residential street, this would be like Molokai. Not like
50
Stone,
feet?
yes. It would be a neighborhood street at 50 feet, 50 foot wide, okay?
Okay.
Is your right of way. So to increase that, that would be a huge residential street. Now, you've got some roads in Cameron Creek where the right of way is bigger than that, but that's because they wanted to do the streetscape on street parking. So you did get wider than the 50 feet. But having it as a 50-foot minimum, that's pretty standard for just a regular neighborhood road.
All right, I misunderstood. I thought that was what it was a 50-foot. I didn't realize it was a minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I misunderstood that, I'm sorry. Okay.
You still with us?
Yeah.
Anything else?
Why? Because I was quiet for a
You
second?
just looked like you were
Contemplating.
Yeah,
contemplating something.
I'm contemplating, all right.
You know, timing,
Is there some sort of communication we should be doing, I don't know,
Yes.
publicly with
Yes.
the
This
county?
is public, oh, that.
I mean, addressing, yes, I agree.
From a staff level, I know here over the last month or so,
Yeah.
Susan has started meeting, and it's just an informal lunch type meeting with Audra Miller from York County and Joe Cronin from Fort Mill.
Right.
And they just kind of rotate, around, and just, it's a catch-up, hey, what's going on, your neck of the woods, that kind of thing.
Okay.
It's nothing formal to the extent that, I don't know that if it should or shouldn't be.
I guess maybe we'll get perhaps more heads up when something else is coming in that is in the county.
I think I want to revisit the idea that we had several years ago, where Tega Cay, Fort Mill, and the county, as Kathy was mentioning, get
The
together.
land use plan?
And have a land use plan.
Mhm.
Because I think that's going to be important for us because of all of this. And I think the attitude in Fort Mill has changed tremendously. So I
That
think
was the
we're
reason
gonna-
we didn't go forward, 5 years ago, I think we budgeted for
Right.
it?
We budgeted $15,000 for it, and it didn't go through because whatever reason.
All right.
So I think I'm going to push for that.
Okay.
Have more of that with Gwen and with Rick Blackwell, and have more of a conversation, and potentially even have it upstairs.
As a forum type
Yeah.
setting?
Yeah,
Okay.
and have a conversation about that. I
Mhm.
think that would be good for us.
We can also use, if necessary, the elementary school, the way they've got it zoned off to go into the cafeteria area.
Yeah.
They
That might be
section that
better.
area
Yes.
off
Better.
where we could do after-hour type things,
Yeah,
so.
that
That'd
might
be
be better.
Mhm.
Okay. That's all we have. We did have two members of public who have raised their hands during our conversation. So if it pleases council, I'd like to open up the microphone once again for the 3-minute rule for you guys to hear what we just discussed, and what do you think?
3 seconds. I wanted to say, as part of your talk about growth in committees, there was a lot of talk a couple years ago about doing an economic development committee and having a group of people, because as a council person, you can't go out.
Hold on, Kathy. You don't have a microphone.
It's right here. Yeah. Kathy Masters, 4072 Point Clear. As part of your growth and committee conversation, I would like to hear about economic development. As a council person, you can't go out and say, hey, I represent Tega Cay. But if you had a group of people who were in the business world, they could go out and say, you know, we'd like you to consider Tega Cay. We're a great place, and we have a lot of rooftops around. So there are a lot of people with purchasing power. Right now, I can't hardly spend my money in Tega Cay or even in South Carolina because there's an outlet mall right down the road. What am I supposed to do? So anyway, that was
Thank you.
my.
You want an outlet mall in Tega Cay? Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
John, you were raising your hand a couple times.
John Sherwood, I haven't moved since the last time I got up here. Economic Development Committee, if we could put something together for that. I know there's been some energy about it in the past.
Yeah.
And it's something always comes up, and we always have something coming up, and it just gets buried, a little bit like the carts. You know, I mean, it just kind of slides down there. But, you know, it's a great city, and there's a lot of things that we have to offer. You know, I moved here for a reason. I stayed here for a reason. My kids are gone. I'm still here, albeit in a much smaller, much more manageable house. You know, but it's a great place, and, you know, we don't have a real story. You know, we don't have a story that goes out and talks to somebody who wants to have a business other than what they hear. And what they hear is, trust me, as a business owner right outside the city, is that, gosh, there's all these sign regulations, and there's all these things, and there's all these business
We're not
licenses, and there's
business-friendly.
all these negative and blah, 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 blah. We don't have anybody out there saying, no, we have teams, we have a group of people and city manager and staff that are working with you to help you be a little bit more successful. We have a group of citizens who love to support their local area. We have ways that you can actually reach out to to citizenship to, you know, to push your marketing. I mean, we market stuff that happens here at Casual Waters when it happens. We do stuff when Toast was opening up, and we actually promote things in our city, and we don't really do that, I don't think, well enough to people who might want to invest in Tega Cay. It just seems like that we let the press or the backbiting get to steer what's going on with the economic side. And I think if we can we have a lot of people here who have a lot of success. You know, former council, former owners, business owners, people who have been here since the very beginning. There's a lot of talent in town. If we could just leverage some of that, you know, with council's grace, it's just this conversation. I think it gets a little dicey if you start letting people just go out and talk on behalf of the city. But if we can get some kind of an organized scenario, bring ideas, bring it to council agrees that this is kind of our marketing pack, and then you go out and start having that dialogue, I think that's pretty helpful.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
All right. Item number 2 on the agenda is an executive session. Council entertain a motion.
Can I make a couple comments
Please.
first, please? Couple things. A, good meeting tonight. B, caution about putting too many items on the agenda in one night. I think this was bordering on too many.
Agreed.
For a or whatever we are. What is this?
Workshop.
Workshop, yeah, forgot. And the other thing, I want to just further make a comment about why I did not vote for public comments during the workshop. I'm not necessarily opposed to them. I think if we're going to, I appreciate that people come and because they take their time, I guess it's nice to hear from them. Tonight was very manageable. There may be another time when we're having workshops that it's not manageable, depending on what the issue is or the issues are. And the idea here is for this to be a working session. And again, it doesn't mean that I don't want to hear from the public, but if we're bombarded by the public, it's going to be very difficult for us to get through our workshop and our working sessions. My notion, and again, I don't mind if we publicize these, it's certainly not a problem for me, and I know they're being televised tonight, but the whole purpose behind workshops, at least from my perspective, is to do what we're doing tonight, which is talking, trying to understand what options we have, get a flavor for things, the topics on the agenda, so that we can move forward and either give the city manager direction, like we did for a couple of items where he's going to information gather to bring to a meeting where the public can attend and ask questions. So my fear is, and it certainly didn't reveal itself tonight, and it may never reveal itself, but my fear is that we get bombarded and then these workshops become nothing more than a regular city council meeting. And so that was why I didn't vote for it. When you asked for comments at the beginning, I should have said this at the beginning, and then you might have understood why I abstained, or why I didn't, But anyway, I just wanted to bring that out just as my opinion and just something that maybe we ought to watch. Also, the next time we have the meeting, if we're doing it here, if this is going to be how we're going to do workshops from now on, maybe we can swap the tables around, because
We were trying to play it for the cameras.
I know, and the
for
problem
folks
is I
doing it
hate
home,
my
and it
back
mixes up with-
being here, or maybe just make long tables this way, and then at least we can all turn. Plus, I'm also afraid of getting shot or stabbed for some reason. I don't know what Walt's doing back there.
You know to duck.
Were you doing this or something? Okay.
We'll certainly look at a different.
So thanks, sorry, I don't want to take too much time, but
No, this was a great meeting. This was a great meeting.
I think it was educational for all of
It
us.
is. It was a really good.
Yeah, I'm actually glad to actually see the public. I think this is the first time I've ever seen someone come to a public workshop,
Yes.
ever.
maybe second.
We did have
I
the
can
one.
think of one.
The novel.
Right, exactly. Have the video camera with a novel. Okay, item number 2 on the agenda is executive session. Council entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'd like to make a motion that we move into executive session for a discussion incident to contractual matters related to food and beverage.
A motion by Dottie Hersey. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Jennifer Stalford. Any council discussion? There being none, call the question. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're in executive session.